Exponents, an explanation of negative exponents. Usually you'll see some definition like this for negative exponents, which can often be confusing. But essentially, if we look at this piece right here, it's saying that if I have any number with a negative exponent up top, I can take that same number and move it to the bottom of a fraction with the positive version of that exponent. Now that can also be confusing, so let's go over a few examples because I promise you it's much easier than all those words make it sound. So here we have two examples going over this idea, one with numbers and another with a variable. Oftentimes your directions will be something like this, where you're rewriting your phrase using only positive exponents. Now something to always remember with negative exponents is that it will not change the sign of our expression. So if I look at this base like a positive 2 right now, it is going to stay a positive 2. A negative exponent only changes where your expression is going to be within a fraction. So it always helps to start by looking at your question like a fraction. For instance, on this first example, it's just a regular 2, but if we want to make it a fraction, we can say this whole thing is over 1. The negative exponent just says that you're in the wrong part of the fraction. A teacher once said, if you're negative, you're not happy, so you need to move to the place that makes you happy. In this case, our 2 to the negative 4 is up top, and it's unhappy. So we simply need to move it to the bottom to make it happy. And notice when the 2 moved to the bottom of the fraction, the negative exponent changes to become a positive exponent. Now in this example, there's nothing else up top with the 2, but remember you can always multiply an invisible 1, and so that invisible 1 will still be on top of the fraction at the end. Technically, you could multiply out 2 to the 4, which would be 1 over 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 1 over 16. And then this will be your final answer. The good news with variables is that everything is going to be exactly the same. We have a negative exponent, so we need to think fractions. X is currently on top of an invisible 1. And because it's a negative exponent, it's not happy where it's at, so it needs to move to the bottom to become happy. And again, we're using that negative sign to say it moved, so after we move it, we change it to positive. And just like the last problem, there's an invisible 1 multiplying, so that invisible 1 will stay on top. And now this is our final answer. When you have numbers, you can multiply them all out to simplify the number, but when you have variables, it just stays like this. Here's another set of directions you might get. Write or select, if it's multiple choice, an equivalent expression. And in these cases, we're going to do the opposite of what we just did up top. So looking at this first example, right now there's a 6 on the bottom of a fraction with a positive 5 as an exponent, which means it's happy where it's at. If we wanted to change that and move it to the top, it would no longer be happy. So that would change the 5 to negative to represent it's in the wrong spot. And similarly with all these problems, there's an invisible 1 multiplying by the 6, so that invisible 1 would still be on the bottom of a fraction. However, dividing anything by 1 is the same as itself, so this becomes our final answer. And now we have a variable, but again, the good news is it's going to do exactly the same thing. We have a with a positive 7 on the bottom, which means it's in the correct spot. So if I want to take this a term and move it to the top, it will no longer be in the right spot, which means it should be negative. So in short, we switch the side of the fraction, we switch the sign of the exponent. Again, the invisible 1 gets left behind on the bottom, anything divided by 1 stays the same, and so this is our final answer. Hopefully that all made sense, and stick around for a video with more complex examples coming soon.